Okay, and we are on, and that should be all set. So, welcome to your Fearless Immunity class, guys. I'm glad you're all here. Let's see if my PowerPoint works today. I got a different computer today, so I got to have one that's working. So we recapped a little bit about last week and how we're covering the 5 essentials and looking at your goals. Did anybody have an aha moment maybe when you were reviewing some of your goals of any of the things that you realized? I know we were talking earlier, and I heard Nina referencing that how she really liked the fact that she was focusing on writing out positive things for ourselves and goal. We don't realize how many times we beat ourselves up with the negative stuff, right? So loving yourself right where you're at, and then, loving yourself as you move forward with that. Anybody have any kind of enlightening, like, wow, I want to really share this goal that I set for myself? Nobody?
For me, I don't sleep enough.
Uh-huh.
And I have to get my butt into bed because it takes me about an hour even before I can fall asleep. Once I get into bed. Mm-hmm. So, and then I've got to be up by 6, and I'm really bad.
Yeah.
So
good. That's a good goal.
So I put my goal that I have to get into bed by 9:30.
Yeah. And I promise you, there's going to be a couple of other things in the 5 essentials that you can contribute to your falling asleep faster. Because that's not something you want to hang on to either. Right? That can definitely happen better too. Anybody else?
Okay, I put down, mine is under nutrition, and I said only consume foods that are organically sourced. Those with 5 ingredients for less. Mm-hmm. This was an aha. I had some rice pilaf, rice aroni, and I didn't think too much about it. I flipped around and looked, and I looked at, I went, I realized what is this?
Yeah.
Now, of course, it was too late. I already had made it.
Right.
And I said, let me look at the box. And I said, no, I'm not buying this anymore.
Good job.
So what I will do is make my own rice pilaf.
Yeah.
It'll probably be a lot better and a lot healthier.
It'll be way tastier. And you can maybe even make it with quinoa.
Yeah, I got to get with. Now, that's another thing I'm working on, the quinoa and other things like that.
Different stuff. Yep. Good. That's very good. Yeah, being aware of what you're actually eating, reading the ingredients.
Or rice, like rice cauliflower. Try to switch it out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then you can homemade that too. What about you, Nina?
I just know that if I got very healthy in 2011, 2012. I had vertigo so bad, I would land in the hospital. Vertigo was nonstop spinning. I couldn't stop vomiting. They had to be hospitalized. It's called Meniere's syndrome. I've lost my hearing. I've had surgery. I've had so much. I found a trainer who changed my life. I changed how I ate. I said, oh my goodness, I could have avoided surgery. I would have my hearing. But I haven't had vertigo since September 2010 because I got with him in the fall, in February. And then I've let myself go. And I'm back to moments of, I feel like I want to have vertigo. And I'm going, I'm determined.
That's a good thing to realize.
I'm determined to stay focused.
Yep.
And be committed. Focused and determined and committed to it.
Good job. I'm glad you're here. And sometimes you have to fall off that wagon a little bit to realize how important it is what you're doing. So that's good realization for sure. So I want to talk with you guys. Tonight's class is focusing a little bit around viruses. And with the time that we're living in right now, this is an interesting topic, yeah. So I want to share with you a little bit about what we know and understand and the science, which I will start out by saying that some of the things that we're doing in the news media, they're like forgetting science for some reason. I don't know what that reason is, but we do know that the science about viruses and germ theory and what your body knows how to do, that did not disappear or go away just because the news has got crazy. So I want to remind you guys of that stuff. So who's heard of the germ theory? A couple of you. You guys have to. These guys are nurses. So am I allowed to tell that? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the
And that's
germ,
why it's so hard.
the
This is
germ
really challenging.
theory, it is a big challenge. The germ theory was actually something that Louis Pasteur discovered back in the 1930s, maybe even before that. I might be dating my dates wrong, but somewhere early 1900s, and sort of a little bit late 1800s. And then his work and research is what made milk get pasteurized today, right? Because of what, bacteria is inside the animal and then passed on to the milk and la la la. So that was the original work behind, and what pasteurization is named after this guy, right? So this book is actually written about the curse of Louis Pasteur, and what they don't go on to tell people now in current science is that right before this guy died, he had a co-conspirator, if you will, a co-scientist that worked with him, and this guy's name was Claude. I forget his last name. Claude.
I can't think of it, man.
You do know it.
Right
I
there.
just had it right here too. I don't know, I just let it go. Anyway, his friend Claude, and he had the opposite theory of Louis Pasteur. The two of them were good pals but rivals. You know what I mean? Like they opposite stuff. Right here. Oh, Claude Bernard. How could I not remember that? It's too easy.
This is another person.
Claude Bernard. So anyway, they were opposites, and they battled back and forth with their research and their theories and their ideas and stuff. And then on Louis Pasteur's deathbed, he concurred with Claude Bernard and said, "You know what? You're right. I'm wrong," because Claude Bernard's theories were that it's not the germ that causes the disease, but what the germ does in that host and in that body that causes disease. So there's a whole big conversation around what the germ lands on. Just like what a seed lands on. If you throw seeds out the window, you're not going to necessarily get a plant out of every seed, right? And that seed might land on the cement and burn up in the sun, and another one might land in soil and get watered, and something's going to grow. So it has to have the right environment, which is what happens inside your body. So there's healthy bacteria and there's unhealthy bacteria, and unhealthy bacteria grows in an unhealthy environment, right? And so what that means is that, first of all, if the germ, I'm going to jump myself ahead, so I'm going to move on for a second. To give you guys also some interesting history, is right around when Louis Pasteur and Claude Bernard were debating themselves, chiropractic was discovered. D.D. Palmer was actually a scientist that was reading and understanding about the human body, and discovered and made the first chiropractic adjustment in 1895. And then BJ went on, his son, to develop chiropractic and made it to become what it is today afterwards. But even Dede back then, in his science and research around this same era, said that he desired to know why was an ailing person eating at the same table, working at the same shop, or working at the same bench. Why was there a difference in these two people that cause the various diseases, while the other person didn't get any disease, right? And so, it stands to recognize that same theory is if we all sneezed and somebody came in and sneezed in this room, not everybody would get sick. And not everybody would get sick the same way. Some people might get, not sick maybe for a day, and somebody else might get sick for 3 weeks. It doesn't have to do with how much somebody sneezed on you. It has to do with what your environment and your body is that then harvests that, infection. Whether it's a virus or a bacteria, your body knows how to handle that. So then B.J. Palmer, who is the developer of chiropractic, went on to theorize that if the germ theory of disease were correct, there'd be no one alive to prove it or to believe it. Because we'd all be dead. Because if we didn't have a way of existing with harmful bacteria or harmful viruses that our body can then make antidotes for, which, by the way, every vaccine that anybody ever even tried to invent relies on the very fact that the body knows how to develop an antidote. It just tries to do it unnaturally. And unfortunately, unnaturally doing it makes you have a weakened immune response. And your weakened immune response doesn't make you as, what's the word I want to say, as immune to it in the future. Like you don't have lasting, long immunity in the process. So all of these guys were theorizing all this stuff all in the same era. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
And yet the pharmaceutical industry and the drug companies grabbed onto this theory and did not want to proclaim or admit that they found out it was wrong. And it's still happening today. Still today. Nobody will admit it. Right? And it is all about the money because they wanted to find it to be easier to be able to invent some kind of drug and keep the same theory of disease is a problem that needs medicine. Right? And then they go on to make everybody else believe in that same stuff. And unfortunately, people are falling for that kind of stuff.
We will send people to medical school and pay them just so they can provide them with that drug.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Oh boy, there's a whole conversation around that too.
So, well,
Which-
the book I read, I was like,
Uh,
oh my God.
Right. And she's absolutely right. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. So here's another little fact from 1918 that probably people don't realize, but you've heard probably in the news that we're talking about the swine flu back in 1918, keep doing those numbers backwards, that there was a pandemic back then, and here we are living in this pandemic now, and they're kind of equating the two things. Well, here's another thing they leave out of the news. I have highlighted in this section right here in Davenport, Iowa, 50 medical doctors took care of about almost 5,000 people. And of those 5,000 people, there were 274 deaths from the swine flu. And in the same exact town, 150 chiropractors, more number than medical doctors, took care of, at the Palmer College of Chiropractic, about 1,600 cases of swine flu and only had one death.
One and nine. Wow.
One death, right? And so that kind of research, when you can Google this kind of stuff and find out that they saw even way back then, because they didn't actually have the science to prove that an adjustment increases the immune system function, but now we do. Now they've done the research where they did an adjustment and then tested somebody's blood system and found out that their white blood cell count goes up after an adjustment, right? We have that research now that actually happens. And they've measured it to be a chiropractic adjustment increases your immune system function by 200%, right? So do you need to get adjusted during this crazy time more so than you need to, right? We're teaching everybody to block themselves from this dangerous bacteria, but the real story is you have to improve your immunity of your host system, which is your body, right? And the good news about all that is that you have one of those. You have an immune system, right? And your immune system is alive and living and knows how to do what it needs to do and does it exactly at the right time and exactly the right way that your body needs to. Nobody's here to stand up and say that any of it's fun when you're sick and you're building an immune system, but you actually can build an immune system. And the majority, like we talked about this last week too, I mentioned, the majority of your immune system response lives in your gut. So how important is it, A, that you keep gut bacteria healthy there, and that you also feed your gut with healthy stuff so that it can actually make and harvest and grow its own healthy bacteria, right? And the opposite of what is true is that if you put garbage in there, then you're going to get garbage bacteria and actually toxins and byproducts that are going to weaken your immune system, and then you're going to have a bigger problem, right? And so that nutrition is a huge role in affecting that and how your microbiome, everybody heard that word before? Your microbiome is actually now considered an organ. And when I first started practicing, we didn't even have something called a microbiome to even talk about. But today, microbiome is the actual bacteria that your body consists of that's healthy bacteria that fights you against infection and protects you. It's a healthy bacteria that's there to protect you and give you your first line of defenses. Yeah. Microbiome. Yep. Or they call it also a microbiota. That's another form of those same words.
Use the VIO.
When we talk about that, what I was going to mention, I lost my train for a second. I'll come back around then. When we're talking about the I know what I was going to say. That, so then with you need healthy bacteria in order to fight infection, yet what does everybody out there, like we're talking about mainstream medicine treatment, do when you have an infection? What do they give you? Antibiotics, right? And what does antibiotics kill?
Everything.
First of all, it kills bacteria. Did you say that? You get a little prize for that. It kills bacteria, not viruses.
Good
And it
bad.
kills all bacteria, right? So some of the things that they've been doing wrong for centuries already is prescribing antibiotics for viral infection. You prescribe antibiotics to a kid who has an ear infection, and ear infections are not bacterial, they're viral. And yet they give them an antibiotic. So all they're doing is killing all their healthy bacteria and then weakening their immune system. They get
And that was a
sick
challenge with COVID, because that was actually, again, not bacterial, it's viral.
Yep.
It's viral pneumonia.
Yep.
So they were loading them up with antibiotics. So it's just,
And they're just doing completely the opposite of what really needs to be done. So it's interesting because that's actually something, if you've been alive for 50 plus years, we grew up in a generation where we were told to, and our parents, if you had a stuffy nose or whatever, you got an antibiotic. And that happened way too many times that then we're starting to notice that more and more people are just, weak and sickness. And then we're creating things like super germs, right? Because now the germs can't, affect you in this no healthy bacteria thing. So the germs and the bacteria in our environment mutate. And they mutate into something that's harder for your body to handle, right? And you become more and more immune.
So we'll give you a more potent
Right?
bacteria.
Yep. And then they just keep raising those numbers up, and it's a vicious cycle. So one of the solutions to making your environment one that's so strong and healthy that you ward off infection and do it quickly, right? And your body can learn quickly is to have readily a bunch of really healthy bacteria available, right? The comorbidities with viruses, a big conversation today is obesity, heart disease, diabetes, your weakened immune system, and high blood pressure. Those are all things that actually make the body that host that's already unhealthy, right? And it's actually an inflammatory response. If you look at all 5 of those things, those are all things that actually raise inflammation in your body. So your host then, your whole body's immunity and the environment that bacteria and virus has to be able to go to, that virus can do that much more damage if you already have too much inflammation, right? As a matter of fact, part of the problems with this lung and COVID, attacking us is not so much the virus attacking us, but it's the byproduct of your body responding to that virus raises inflammation. So if you already have too much inflammation and raise more inflammation, sometimes it's impossible for people to fight that back, right? So some of the solution, which we're going to be giving you some of that towards the end, is to do things not only to get rid of these comorbidities. The solution isn't to figure out what other drug or thing do I need to add to my body so I can keep the sickness and disease in my body and then find a different way to fight off the virus. You understand that? What we should be talking about in the news is not how many times I have to wear a mask for my grandma, but it should be how can I help my grandma and myself and all my family members not have heart disease and diabetes and obesity, and right? That's really the solution that we need to be looking for. And don't get me wrong, we want to protect grandma, right? But at the same time, we want to try to figure out how to make our society it's not just old people. We got children with diabetes right now, right? We should be more concerned about children with diabetes than we are about, right?
a lot of children with high blood pressure.
Yep.
Major
High blood pressure and diabetes and
Yeah.
obesity, those things all go together.
A 16-year-old had a stroke.
Oh my
16-year-old because of high blood pressure.
Yeah. Right? So there's the sad reality is, and we're not going to all run around trying to figure out how can we make some miracle cure for this 16-year-old who's already got all these other problems. We need to teach that with that family and that person, how to fix all those other comorbidities. So you get that? Make sense? So here's the good news is you can build a fearless immune system, right? So just the same way you would start out with no muscle strength and you'd start picking up some weights and working, and it would not be very much fun, and it would hurt, and the next day you get out of bed and you want to have to go get an Epsom salt. So I did do that every day because I was doing curtsy lunges, and my butt cheeks were killing me. So I totally, can relate to that kind of stuff. And when you're working hard and building something, you're going to create then a better outcome. But just in the same way you can build stronger muscles or build your body's immunity, you can build your strength of your immune system by, quite frankly, many times it's getting sick and getting over that infection with your own body's resources that strengthens your immune system. So every time a child, think about this, God created fever-related illnesses for children to have to build an immune system so that when they become adults, they have a healthy, strong immune system that exercises a little bit at a time. Not 4 viruses in one shot, right? But one infection at a time that they just got the right kind of exposure to. And even think about the way that we're designed to even be exposed to an infection. It doesn't get put directly in our bloodstream. It goes first on our skin, which what do we have on our skin? Healthy bacteria that already knows how to start fighting things. And then we have digestive enzymes, right, that go, and then it gets in our stomach and we get more enzymes. So by the time that thing is then in our digestive system and getting absorbed into the bloodstream, it's already weakened, right? And it's weakened and the body has recognized it. And right away, because the body recognizes it and starts weakening it right away, the body then has time to start bringing in these antigens and antidotes. And the antidotes then are something that your body remembers how to make so that the next time you're in contact with that, you have the antigen to fight it again, right? It's a perfect, miraculous creation that God made your body to be able to know how to do that stuff. And it will blow you away if you saw. I've played videos for some of you guys before that you've seen this kind of stuff where they show what the cell actually goes through in the process of an infection being present. And nobody has to think, oh, I better turn on my, fighting whatever thing. Your body just automatically knows how to do it. Before you even know you got anything going on, it's fighting it up. Right? And so every time you go through that and you create the antigen naturally on your own, not take an antibiotic, because guess what? When somebody's taking an antibiotic, the body goes, well, there's already something there fighting it. I don't need to make one. And so then the next time you're exposed to that thing, you don't have it in your bloodstream already memorized. So every time you take an antibiotic, you're actually weakening your immune system. Not only are you killing healthy bacteria, but you're not teaching your immune system anything. So it's not getting any exercise. Right? Isn't that interesting? So you really can build, and every time in our house, if somebody's fighting something or has a fever or a stuffy nose or whatever, it's, oh, well, you're building up your immune system. Right? You got some negative symptoms, oh well, but that's what your body needs to do to build up your immunity. Right? It's not, I'm sick, I'm exercising my immune system. Right? When you think about it in a positive way, right? You can do that. So we do strengthen your immune system through 5 essentials, right? It's not just through nutrition alone, but all the 5 essentials are really that the body doesn't need any help knowing how to heal, because you're born with that intelligence. It just needs no interference, right? And we're gonna lifestyle changes will enhance the way that the disease protection, and those lifestyle changes are key to enhancing the way your body responds to disease stuff, right? And so that's what we want to look at. What's the very first thing? I think it's power turned on, right? Power turned on is one of the most important things. And you all, I think everybody in this room knows why I say that, right? I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't. When we talk about chiropractic care, there's a difference between structure care, which is what we do in this office, and symptom care. And I have to many times walk in my day, walk a new patient through this process. Because I tell you, many times patient walk in my office with I don't really, hurt too much. I just got a little something here or a little something there. And they want to kind of downplay why they even came into my office, right? Or they might even, fill out nothing hurts. I just, want to get my posture checked, or I just came in because my wife told me I had to, right? We get all kinds of stuff that naysayers of people kind of just like not really talking about stuff that, and I'll tell you, I can't share any names, but I'll tell you briefly. I had a new patient recently who had some lower back pain, and he's had lower back pain off and on, and he will have it some days, then not, go away, and then he thinks he's okay in between all that, and then he has a job where he does a lot of heavy lifting, and he's in his 50s, and so with this, a little bit of back pain, he's thinking, I just got to get. I've been to the chiropractor before, and when I just get cracked, it's all better, right? So he's looking for a crack to make his back pain go away. And then I look at his x-rays and find out that he's got a long history of digestive problems, cancer. He's got all kinds of health issues that, go on a very long list of things that he's got an answer. Siri wrote all that down. He's got an answer of every kind of medical thing, and he's got this long list of medications that he's on, but he's just here because his back hurts. Right, and so I look at his x-ray and I find out he's got, degenerative arthritic changes in his thoracic spine from top to bottom, affecting his gut, his digestive system, his heart, right? And doesn't even realize that his spine has something to do with his organ system. And then put the two together, right? So if all I was a symptom care chiropractor, I'd say, sure, we can help you with your back pain, crack, out the door. And I'd be like every other chiropractor this guy already went to. Right? And sometimes I have to stand in that gap and then not necessarily making friends when I do that. Right? Because they're kind of like, no, that's what I want to hear. Right? And they might even not stay. Right? They might not like what I do. But this is just what God taught me and designed me to be able to relay to people is the truth about where health and healing comes from. And to speak some truth into, you don't have to wonder why you're missing a third of your organs. Look at what your nervous system is doing. Right? And when we see that connection to how important your nervous system function is to all your organ systems working properly and make that connection for people, it's like a light bulb will go off. Right? And that's what's really important about structure care is not just about your back pain. Right? It's not a conversation about where it hurts or why it hurts. It's a conversation about your power working. Is your power turned on? So then we're going to segue here into nutrition a little bit. The nutrition portion of what we want to dive into today is going to be a little bit more detailed about not just, last week we talked about getting rid of your junk, right? And reading your ingredient list, like Linda so eloquently told us about. So today, where we want to dive into this week is to pay more attention to what we're eating and the foods that we're eating, and then start eliminating some things that, are not things that help our immune system, right? And one of the first things is become aware of how damaging sugar is to your immune system. So first of all, we know directly that one hit of sugar will actually weaken your immune system within about 10 or 15 minutes of it hitting your bloodstream. So it happens instantaneously. So the old-fashioned answer of, I don't feel good, mommy, so drink a ginger ale. No, because that's full of sugar, right? So that's definitely not one of the things that you want to do. And what do we also tend to do if we have a cold or something, we think we have to get more vitamin C, so we drink orange juice. That's full of sugar, right? Or sometimes we feel so bad that we're sick that we have to have some ice cream or a popsicle, right? Because that comfort food makes us feel better, right? Calories are important. But we want them to be healthy calories, not sugar-related calories. And then the sugar does something in your body that is called glycation. And that glycation is the action of your body breaking down sugar and how it metabolizes it. And if it constantly gets hit with too much sugar, that glycation reaction is where your pancreas cannot handle the overload of the sugar in the bloodstream too much too fast. And glycation is like the byproducts of breaking down sugar in your body that then is a dirty output. And when I say dirty output, it'd be like if you had a wood burning fire inside your house, and then all the smoke and soot and everything else that would be the result of that afterwards. That's the equal picture in your mind of what sugar is like when it's broken down in your body versus what vegetables metabolize like in your body. Right? So glycation is the dirty byproduct, and by dirty byproduct we mean that's where we have the where we need antioxidants, right? Because it oxidizes cells, and the oxidize causes damage to cell structure, right? And so then that builds inflammation, and that sugar building inflammation causes that toxic overload in the body, and too much overspill of this glycation end product is what actually develops inside of that. Right? It might be easier for you to just digest in your head that sugar weakens your immune system and causes inflammation. It makes you, have all kinds of dirty end products. So it's literally like when you change and get rid of sugar in your diet, it's like you change from a wood burning stove to gas burning, right? Because gas doesn't give off any negative, soot and products like wood burning does. So in order to change that, there's two ways that we do that. We do Maximize Living Core Plan in our office. The Core Plan is still reducing their exposure to sugar, but now you're doing more whole grain things. So instead of maybe a white rice, you're doing a brown rice. You're doing those grains that take longer to cook, so they're more like a whole grain if you're having any. But even then, you're still taking that pyramid that we learned when I was in elementary school. We learned that food pyramid was this big portion of what you eat should be your fiber in your diet, right? And then we worked our way up to fat being little tiny. We have to turn that whole thing upside down, right? And what your food should be instead is lots of healthy fats and proteins, mostly vegetables, and then very little bit of fiber, carbohydrates, right? And that would be what we would consider the core plan. We have patients do core plan if they're not trying to lose any weight, if you're not trying to come off of any medication, or if you're not already having some inflammatory responses where you might have those metabolic conditions and inflammation. If you do have metabolic conditions or inflammation, so any of those 5 things we said earlier, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, right? We have maybe weight loss resistance, that's another thing, inflammation in body, joints. We want to be on the advanced plan. The Maximize Living Advanced Plan says we take lower amounts of sugar, even in the sugar God made. So what we do is instead of eating any kind of fruit, you just use green apple, berries, or grapefruit. So all things are on a low glycemic level of sugar intake. We also do those before 1 in the afternoon. So you're doing it more in the morning side of the day and eliminating like before bedtime sugar intake. And then you're increasing your fats and your healthy fats, changing bad fats into healthy fats. That's another thing you do on the advanced plan. So bad fats are things like vegetable oil or oils that have a long shelf life. Canola oil is a bad oil, by the way. So your oils should be olive oil, or we use avocado oil these days is a good one. Grapeseed oil is a good one. And then those are all things you would use cold. And when you're cooking something in high heat, we would use coconut oil and even organic butter, and not margarine. Margarine is bad because it's not really a healthy fat at all.
Put a plug in for the advanced plan. 4 days. Last week my average blood sugar was 177. Last 4 days, 148.
Yay. Yeah.
4 days.
What's
It's
amazing
already
is it changes really fast,
down, yeah.
is what she's pointing out too, because as you
That's
start
not
making
too
those
long.
changes, the first 2-3 days is a little bit
Yeah.
tricky. Once you get over like the 4th and 5th day, and if you have been eating sugar for a really long time, it might take you a week or 2. But once you get over that sugar clean out of your system, you actually stop craving sugar. And you start craving carbs. So it does get easier. We do, kind of suggest that you start with some things kind of gradually, but then when you feel like you're really ready to make that transition, that you kind of cut off the sugar for a period of time. And it doesn't mean for the rest of your life, right? But it means until you get to a goal or you lower the blood pressure. And then when you bring it back, you bring it back in the way of the core plan rather than back in the way of the standard American diet that got you in trouble in the first place. Does that make sense? So advanced plan is for the healing period of time. Core plan is for, just living life the rest of your life. Anybody have questions about any of that stuff here at this point? Is it good? All right. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So exercise also, then that's one of the 5 essentials that we're going to be focusing on. And exercise is really hugely important for increasing your immune system. So it used to be that you kind of dragged yourself out of bed because you thought, if I'm going to lose weight, I got to burn some calories, so I'm going to exercise. Well, the truth of the matter is that the exercise is really much more important for your body's ability to increase your immunity, your immune system, so much so that when you exercise on a regular basis, it actually reduces your risk of cancer, heart disease, right? All these other things in addition to raising your immunity in the process. And it's something that's relatively easy to do. They have a statistic on there that when you regularly exercise, they say 3 to 5 times a week doing a high output exercise. It can be a 20-minute high output or even a 30-minute, quick walk is better than sitting on the couch. So start where you are and build up. The definition of exercise is something that's harder for you to do than just normal daily activity. So that's different for everybody, right? And it's different maybe even when you get started than it will be later on, right? So you might start out with something that's, kicking your butt. Well, then later on, once you get to the point where like, oh, this feels pretty easy, you got to add something more to it. And it's true about no matter what kind of activity you have. I physically, my job on my feet, running around, adjusting people, moving back and forth, and it's a pretty physical job. But I still have to exercise on top of that because what I do in my normal everyday routine job. So if you walk 2 miles every day, pretty soon that's not exercise. Does that make sense? That's what I'm trying to say. So we gotta pick something like that up. And resistant exercises are really important for raising your heart rate pretty quickly and doing what we want to do with our heart rate is make it go up and recover fast. Make it go up and recover fast. And some of you might go up and then have a harder time recovering until you practice those peak workouts, and then you'll start recovering faster. And that recovery rate is what makes your heart really healthy. Right? So it's really important that you practice those. So you got to kind of push it in order to get to those levels. And I wanted to remember to say, because I forgot to say this last week, that if you should have in your home care kit that you got in your Align book, a bookmark. Some of you may or may not have noticed it, so I want to tell you about it. It's if you haven't opened your book yet, it's sitting in your book. There's a bookmark that has Max T3 digital download on it, and that digital download has an access code that you've already paid for that you can go and load it onto your phone. If you have a smartphone, you put it right on your phone, and it walks you through how to do a workout. Like you literally got the guy at the gym telling you do this, so you got your own personal trainer in your phone. And then you can load it on a computer if that's easier for you, whatever works easiest for you. If you don't have access to that and you want that, or you haven't been doing Max T3 workouts in a while and you don't have access to it, you can also go to maxt3.com, and right in their front page, it has a load your prepaid access code or buy a new one. And it's like $9.99 to get your access code to it. And it definitely has more to it than back in the day. We used to have a digital, like a DVD player that we plugged in, back in the old days.
That one. So
that one has a good amount of workout on it, but the new digital download has even more. So what they're doing with some of the HIIT exercises now is that they're doing, 20-minute intervals or full minute long intervals that you then have a full minute long rest in between. So it changes it because if you only do 20-minute intervals, 20-second intervals, you only do 20-second intervals all the time, your body just used to 20-second intervals. And then that becomes like your 2-mile walk that you know how to do every day, right? So you got to change it. Sometimes you do a 30-second interval, sometimes you do a 60-second interval, sometimes you do a 20-second interval. And changing that up all the time is really important. And that digital download walks you through that. Okay? We do have towards the end one of our classes going to be focusing on exercising. We'll do a little bit of that together in here too. Okay, so now we're moving on to toxins. We're minimizing toxins. So we already had a conversation about minimizing toxins in your food, reading food labels and stuff like that, and eating more food by God. I want to have a little conversation now about toxins that we get exposed to in our personal care products or our household cleaners. And the first thing we're going to have a conversation about is antibacterial soap. So that whole conversation we just had about how it's bad to take antibiotics and then strip your body of all the healthy bacteria that you're supposed to have in the first place, that's not only bad for the inside of your body, it's also bad for the outside of your body. So constantly washing your hands in antibacterial soap or using an antibacterial hand sanitizer, bad for you. As a matter of fact, it'll make your hands break out in all kinds of damage and rashes and all kinds of stuff. And I've seen some people get some pretty inflammatory, terrible responses with doing that kind of stuff. So the solution to that conversation is, first of all, just wash your hands with regular soap. You don't have to use an antibacterial thing. You can just use regular soap. And then the lemon drops that we gave you also is one of the things that essential oils are known to be things that kill bad bacteria and bad viruses without necessarily stripping and killing all the healthy stuff at the same time. And so we also make that stuff, and some of you maybe have seen, I don't know if you have seen, but I use one that we make in the office that's made with witch hazel and then lemon and purify. So these essential oils that are not bad for your skin, but still taking away some of the toxins. Not toxins, sorry, bacteria and viruses. But we have some also on the counter for sale that Lorena actually makes. I don't know if all of you don't necessarily know Lorena, but Lorena is our oil person. And she makes those by hand. They have tea tree. So there's lots of really great uses for essential oils. And I use them a lot, not only with the antibacterial answer, and I only do that if I'm like, here quickly between patients or on the road somewhere. And I literally do it only just because I've got like something sticky on my hand and it feels icky or something. I might do that. But, for the most basis, you don't need to be doing that to your hand all the time. That's something you want to definitely lessen how often you do that. And there are a bunch of toxins in the stuff that's got the 99% alcohol and germ killing, blah blah blah, and it's just stripping the heck out of your hands doing that. So don't do that to yourself. Your household products, same kind of thing. You want to be using natural things. We use baking soda concoctions that have a little bit of a consistency to it, like a scrubbing thing that you can use in the bathroom, and again add oils to that. We use vinegar. I use witch hazel quite a bit. Vinegar with water. There's also a concentration of something called On Guard that they use for cleaning products. It's like a concentration of the oil that you add water to, and then it's a cleaning supply. And one of the reasons why you use something like that is because, first of all, you're breathing that in while you're cleaning, right? So then there's a bunch of toxins in the ammonia, and the bleach is all really bad for you. And then you're also cleaning like your kitchen or your dishes, and then putting food on that. Right? We never have to realize that if you wipe your countertop down with this big old bleach thing and you're like, oh, great, my countertop's all nice and clean, and then you go to bed, the countertop dries, and you get up the next morning and you're making your sandwich or your breakfast or your whatever on your countertop, that stuff's going right into your food, right? So you just want to be more aware of how those toxins are playing over. I love the face you're making. It's like, oh, I never thought of it that way before, but it's very true. So you want to make some transition to those. Same thing with personal products. You don't want to be putting a bunch of toxic things on your body, your makeup. You want to make sure it's not full of, carcinogens and that kind of stuff. So, deodorant's another personal care, which I'm not sure if I have that on my next slide or not. I don't, but I'll tell you a little bit about that too. But deodorant has got a bunch of toxins in it as well. So you want to not be using antiperspirants because it has aluminum in it, and aluminum's going directly into your skin. And then you want to use a deodorant, but you also want to use something natural. And there are lots of products out there that you can use.
You know when this guy actually had commercial, I was like, good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so there's definitely lots of resources right now, and this is becoming something that's so common that, you know, it's easy enough to find the stuff that's not toxic for your body. And if you have questions about that, please feel free to ask. So your little lemon dropper that I gave you tonight, that's your little gift for coming tonight, and it's got lemon drops, of course, in it, and it's got a little like stopper top on the top that allows you, when you turn it over, that it's going to drip a drop at a time. Because first of all, you don't want to pour that stuff on anything, and literally like one drop in a glass of water is going to make that glass of water very lemony. You know, just one drop at a time. But we also have some other uses for it. First of all, it's really something you can put in your water and take internally that's very helpful for respiratory discomfort or distress. You add lemon to a spray bottle with cleaners for countertops. I put it in my hand sanitizer, that you can use it like that. I like to put it in tea. Like if you have a hot tea, put a drop of the lemon in your tea that way. You can use it on a cloth and soak the lemon oil and use it on your furniture. So water with a drop in that hot water with a drop of lemon in it, and then you can clean your house with that warm water with a drop of lemon in the water.
So the actual lemon oil, essential oil, you
Yeah.
can consume.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can consume it. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Look at, they even use it for tarnishes on silver and things like that. So that's also something. And then it's great to also diffuse. So lots of different things that you can do with the lemon oil. And my motivation was to kind of encourage you a little bit about using that for some cleaning supplies or in your body, you know, as a healthy way of using things for digestion and stuff like that. And there's lots of different oils, so if you want more and have more questions about that, we can go into some more detail about that too. So Max Mind is the other essential that we want to be kind of paying attention to. And stress, I point this one out because you have to be intentional about reducing stress. It's not just going to reduce all by itself, right?
Yeah.
So in order to fix that, we are not going to be focusing on stress reduction. We're going to be focusing on relaxing improvement. Right? Like you're going to increase your self-care. So do more things that are for self-care. That we wrote on here about the 55% of Americans say that they're under stress. That's actually a slide not in 2020. We put that slide up there in 2020, see what the number goes up to? 90%. Right? And I don't know anybody yet personally who died of COVID, but I know a couple people who committed suicide, friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so stress is a big, big, scary, terrible thing. And we need to be intentional about making some moves and some actions to do something different. Whether it be go for a walk or take a hot bath or what that is for you, I can't decide for you, but you definitely want to take some time to, and I'm talking to myself, I'm talking to you guys too. You got to just sit down and take a breather or do something that's, rewarding and fun for yourself. We a couple weekends ago went and took a big drive out. We just got in the car and drove, and the colors are beautiful. And we go up north. Now we don't even have to go very far because the colors are beautiful right here. So be intentional about that and find some stuff that can help you do that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some nutrients, some immune supporting nutrients. And this is a little bit towards the wrap up, and we'll do some Q&A then. So vitamin D3, and there's a couple pages I want to make sure I have here. Vitamin D3 is a really important immune system response vitamin, and we don't get enough of it, and we are not consuming it in food. It's something you only get when you're out in the sunshine, and we're not doing that very well in Michigan. Even if it was the dead June, middle of summer, we don't absorb enough D3. We're not out in the sun enough. And then when we are out in the sun, many people are trying to block themselves from being in the sun to try to avoid getting sunburned. So then you're still really not getting enough vitamin D3. So in the Midwest is very, very high culturally for low D3. And people who have cancer have very low D3. As a matter of fact, it's a big problem that they recognize that your immunity is very weakened. It's D3 is a big culprit. So it's really important to take vitamin D3. Your blood serum levels of D3 should be 70 to 90. If you have never had that checked before, You won't know that number without necessarily asking for it on the next time you have a blood test done. You can rest assured that you probably don't have that 70 to 90 number unless you've been taking about 5,000 IUs of D3, maybe even 10,000 IUs of D3 for about 6 months. If you haven't been doing that, you probably don't have very high levels of D3. And you may have done a D3 test or had it on a blood test where in the medical world, they tell you that it's normal if it's at 40. And 40 is not enough to stimulate immunity. It's only enough to not have rickets.
What's the level in the D3 here?
5,000. It's 5,000 in one tablet, and I'll have to tell you, since the beginning of this year, I'm not doing it right now because I did it for like the first 6 months, but I took 2 of those for a good solid 6 months.
The next screen is from 500.
Yes. D3 is not in the max screen.
Okay, just
That is a good thing to take, but that's not D3.
right. I just want.
Yep, yeah. So D3, and then D3 is also really important with having probiotic available in it, and our D3 has both those things in it. The other thing is vitamin C. They actually reported in their research, if you don't watch regular television, that vitamin C actually is very effective against COVID. And you should be taking quite a bit of it. And it reduces, on an average, prior to COVID, this research, before COVID, talking about reducing illness in general in your body by 17%. So vitamin C is a good thing to take. It's water soluble, so it's something that you do have to take on a regular basis. And it's not a good idea to try to get it in your food because you have to have way too much sugary foods that you wouldn't normally eat on a normal basis in order to get enough. Like 1 glass of orange juice is 50 milligrams of vitamin C. And you should be taking more like anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 a day right now. But you can't take that all at once. So vitamin C should be like 1 to 2,000 3 or 4 times a day. Like that. Spread it out. Zinc also very important right now and has been shown to be very effective for fighting COVID. Keeping your immunity strong against it, not getting it in the first place.
What's
Even
how much is that?
what they show in that is, 50 milligrams is a number, but I can't remember off the top of my head what ours is. They want to minimally do 50 milligrams. And we do have a zinc actually that Maximize Living didn't have one before this year, but they had one. Anyway, so zinc has been shown to reduce the duration of sickness by 33%. And that number is also, again, very true for what their response is to the COVID that we're responding to right now. Not that that it fights it so much when you have it, but it shortens the amount of time. I'm trying to remember the number, if I can remember the number. It shortens the amount of time that you are sick for. So what they've shown is that if you get exposed to it, it shortens the days that it takes your body to fight it, is what zinc can do for you. And you don't, again, get that very well in your food. And then everybody's heard about elderberry and how that is fighting against COVID. And, I've been taking it since the beginning of the year. Maximum Living is now making a supplement that's called Immune Response. And I'm pretty excited about it because it has more than just elderberry in it without all the sugar, right? Because I've been taking elderberry. Anybody else been doing that? And I bought one in the spray. Yeah. Every source of elderberry that you can have is like sweet. It's like really sweet. So, let's see. The elderberries are great for treating infection and have been known to do that for a very long time already, but it is lowering, the elderberries have actually reduced your flu-like symptoms 4 days faster than a placebo. Right? So that's where the elderberry comes in, is that it fights that faster. So this is really good for this time of year coming in, whether it's COVID or something else. Echinacea also helps reduce the risk of getting sick by over 50% and reduces the length of sickness 1 to 5 days. So echinacea is also in that same supplement. And then it also has a couple other things, elderberry, echinacea, and immune supporting nutrients. Oh, and medicinal mushrooms are in this supplement. And I'll show you the picture of it here on the end page. So it's called IM Support. Immune support, and that's what's in it is the medicinal mushrooms, echinacea, and elderberry. is all in that one tablet. And this is the immunity bundle that we put together. This is actually one of the bundles during this 6-week program. I don't have a lot of stuff that we're like trying to throw a bunch of stuff at you. We're trying to just kind of give you the basics. But this is one of the bundles that I thought, this is a really important bundle, and this is the stuff that I'm taking. And so this is the stuff you want to protect your immune system with. You should be making sure you're getting zinc, your D3, vitamin C. If you choose not to do it here with us, I don't care one way or another, but those are things that you definitely need to make sure you're getting, somewhere, and that you're getting a good source of it. Everything that's great about Maximize Living's resources is that everything is made organic and made from whole food sources, so it's stuff that your body readily absorbs. You could certainly buy cheaper vitamins, and cheaper vitamins will be having either, you have to be careful about the toxins that are put in the vitamin. Like when you read that ingredient list on your rice-a-roni there, Linda, you would see that on vitamins, right? There's a whole list of things that are toxic. So you want to make sure that all your vitamins are made from whole foods and not adding preservatives and food colorings and things like that.
I am support. That's new.
Yes, it is.
So that again has what?
Elderberry,
Elderberry.
echinacea, and medicinal mushrooms. They're all in there. Yeah, and that we have that available. You can buy them individually, but we also have it available in a bundle tonight for 20% off.
So, I see. That already has D3 in it.
It's got D3
Did it have?
and it has a
I'm taking it,
multivitamin.
but
And it has a multivitamin.
It does not have C or zinc in it. Can you help me with the answer to that question?
It does.
The women's multi-packet has D3 and C already in it.
No, it did not have C.
Doesn't have C in it.
But the,
It has D3 in it and a multivitamin. It has very little C,
Oh, is it low?
which is traditional with a multivitamin in it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of everything.
So it doesn't have the iron support.
That's right. Yeah, definitely the iron.
And it's
It
got
doesn't
the
have the zinc,
B12.
of course.
And
It has
the
B complex
The
Well,
B12.
complex.
B12.
is in that woman's.
It's really good to get that.
You would be, first of all, I'll say out loud that you would be okay having that packet and all these things and not overload yourself. Or you could also use the D3 for somebody else in your household. If you're taking an extra D3 and you buy this bundle, that D3 is like $9 a bottle or something like that, and then it's 20% off, so it's not gonna hurt you that much.
What did you take, what you bought last week? No,
The packet,
the packet,
that's what she's talking about.
right, plus the Max Greens.
It's a little-
It's, will it include any of that?
Nope,
No.
Okay, so you need even more.
yes. Good questions. Anybody else?
But now that we've been, I'm just gonna jump out on a limb here,
Okay,
because I've been taking D3, I've been taking vitamin D, I've been taking zinc, and I've been eating fairly decently. I go downtown and I get sick
mhm,
on the floor for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they gave me 2 weeks off to quarantine. And I honestly think that this is probably what helped me get through that.
Yeah.
Without scathing, without getting it, without bringing it home to
Yeah.
my husband.
and not to mention how much weight you've lost in the last how many years?
112 pounds
Okay.
over the last 14 years.
So,
I
so,
kept it on
so,
for 5.
so picture what that would have been like,
Yeah.
right? On top of that.
Now I'm
And so
trying to
that,
get my sugar back
so
up.
the years of your metabolic processing and
Right.
all that kind of stuff, I mean, all
Because
that.
I pretty much
Everything you do contributes to that, and you can't take
Yeah.
away all the
No.
work that you just did for how many
No.
years to get
and I
this.
still eat pretty much the core plan.
Yeah.
But now I'm going back and being strict on the advanced plan because I want to get those sugars down again. Because since the pandemic, stress
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's been everywhere.
It's huge, but you're doing awesome.
But now that I'm back swimming in my pool,
Yay!
and getting the regular, I'm gonna add the max
Yeah,
tapes, and it's gonna.
it's gonna make a big difference for sure.
Can you buy the iron support? This
Individually, yes, you can. Yeah, you don't have to buy the bundle. The bundle is just the bigger discount. So you need to weigh out what you want to do that. Okay, so just a little breakdown. Next week, we are going to be talking about cancer awareness as we're talking about immune system and what that connection is for you and for everybody. Also, then we're going to kick off that 28-day challenge. So when we do kick off that challenge, we're going to try to give you as much tools as we possibly can, and then have you have like a before and an after process. So we have available the Tanita scale. You can scale in. You don't have to scale in. You know, we want to encourage you to have like a before and after. The one thing that's cool about the Tanita scale too is that it tells you, like your body fat percentage, so that if you lose weight, you can also tell like how much of that was fat versus muscle, and it also gives you an age, which is kind of interesting because your target is to try to be younger than your actual age is, right? Instead of older than your age is. So it's interesting to see what it calculates for you for that. And I think that's it. We can do a few more Q&A if you want. I'm going to turn off my stream here though while I do that. I think